Welcome to the Financial Advisor Success Podcast, where you go behind the scenes with financial planner, speaker, and consultant Michael Kitces to hear stories of how leading financial advisors navigated the inevitable challenges that arise on the path to success, and get insight from leading industry consultants about how to break through to the next level in your advisory business. And now here's your host, Michael Kitces.
Welcome, everyone. Welcome to the 434th episode of the Financial Advisor Success Podcast. My guest on today's podcast is Vanessa N. Martinez. Vanessa is the CEO of Expressive Wealth, an RIA based in Chicago, Illinois, that oversees $135 million in assets under management for approximately 70 client households, including 10 core ultra-high net worth families. What's unique about Vanessa, though, is how her firm, in addition to ensuring clients have established a traditional estate plan focusing on efficient transfer of assets, works with its high net worth clients on what Vanessa calls legacy planning in order to not only pass down their assets to the next generation, but also the parents' family values that generated the wealth as well. In this episode, we talk in depth about how Vanessa engages in a multi-meeting discovery process with clients to first understand where they stand today with regard to estate planning and intra-family communication, and then dig deeper into what the client wants to achieve through their legacy. How Vanessa has clients consider their family values for each of the accumulation, preservation, and distribution phases of their lifetimes, leaving room open to amend these values as life and financial circumstances change over time. And why Vanessa has clients write down their values and legacy goals, both to ensure their permanence and to prevent misunderstandings that can develop when values are simply communicated verbally like a telephone game down the family tree over time. We also talk about how Vanessa's intimate involvement in her clients' lives, from attending major life events to supporting family members going through life transitions, helps drive client referrals to their friends in similar life and financial circumstances. How Vanessa uses neighborhood-based client events, such as a stocks and sip evening of financial education and wine sipping, to draw in a select group of clients and their prospective client friends without having any awkwardness for not inviting her full client roster that simply doesn't live in that neighborhood. And how Vanessa has found success holding client events on Thursday nights, given that attendees are often in a good mood, only one workday left in the week, while also avoiding filling up valuable weekend night that prospects may not be willing to let go of to meet her. And be certain to listen to the end, where Vanessa shares how she uses a practicing psychologist in a chief clinical officer role to provide personality and communication assessments both for her team internally and to facilitate communication when Vanessa brings together clients and their children in a family meeting to discuss the results of their legacy exploration exercises. How Vanessa has found that getting clients to focus on the legacy while still alive can allow them to answer questions from their children and ultimately deepen relationship with their kids before any wealth is inherited. And why Vanessa ultimately views legacy planning as a way for clients to share their stories with the next generation so they value not just the dollars that they will receive, but also the emotional and intellectual wealth being passed on to them as well. And so with that introduction, I hope you enjoy this episode of the Financial Advisor Success Podcast with Vanessa N. Martinez. Welcome, Vanessa N. Martinez, to the Financial Advisor Success Podcast.
Hi.
I'm so excited to have you join us today and to get to dig a little into the dynamics that crop up when we start doing, it's nominally I'll say estate planning for clients, although I know you have a little bit of a different approach to it that I think will be the focus for today. Because when I look historically, I mean, estate planning has quote unquote always been a staple of financial planning in the CFP curriculum, because for most of our kind of history of CFP, like most people had an estate tax problem. If you go back to like the 70s, 80s, and even the 90s, like the estate tax exemption topped out at $600,000. So like a young couple with term insurance had an estate tax problem. And so we offered solutions with insurance and irrevocable life insurance trusts and all the tools and estate planning tactics we had. And then over the past 20 years, like the estate tax exemption rose dramatically from $600,000 to $1 million to now for a married couple, we're closing in on $30 million, which means the number of taxable estates from the IRS fell like 95% or more. And a lot of advisory firms kind of moved away from estate planning and focused elsewhere. Like either we do the income tax planning, a basis step up on the estate, or like we just try to get documents in place with Encore Estate and Trust and Will and Wealth.com and all the services that have cropped up. But to me, there's always been another aspect of the estate planning side, which is like taxes aside, literally who gets what money, when, and how, and how does that shape the the legacy of what's left behind. And the more dollars that are at stake, the more legacy tends to take on a role. And just, I know that's a domain you have spent a lot of time on that I'm excited to talk about, I guess, like, what does it mean to do legacy planning as distinct from estate planning? And I guess whether even you think that's a fair distinction to make.
I definitely think there's a difference. I think you said it quite well that the estate plans were truly created for tax optimization and to kind of tell a story on how you want those assets to transfer to the next generation. I guess how and when and who. But we left out the human side of next generation sharing. And that's where I believe legacy planning comes into play. We need to share not just our values. Many people have created like a mission statement or family values, which I think is wonderful. And I think that's the first step. But then we lean even further into it and need to share the stories behind the what's. Right? I can tell you, okay, Michael, I'm adding you to my estate plan, and this is what you're going to get. But if I don't share with you how I created those dollars, then you might be unaware of not just all the sacrifices I made to create them, but also maybe partially my intention in giving them to you specifically. So I think legacy planning is digging really deep into those stories that we need to share with the next generation so they learn to value the dollars that we're passing on, as well as the emotional and intellectual wealth we're passing to them.
I'm struck by how you framed that. Like legacy, I mean, I quote this exactly right. Like legacy planning, sharing the stories with the next generation so they value the dollars we're passing to them.
Mhm. I think if you try to remember the day that your parents gave you XYZ dollar amount, it it'll be impactful in the sense like, oh, I remember the first time they gave me, let's say, 15,000 for a down payment on my house. And that was it. I love them so much for it. They're such great parents because they thought about it and saved it for me and gave it to me. But now, if you go back and your parents shared with you the creation of that, so if they say, when you were 5 years old, I got this promotion for a partnership at my practice. And I remember picking you up from school. You had spilled ice cream on yourself. And remember, you gave me that project with the macaroni on it that I still have hanging. That day was the day I got the promotion. And that's what propelled me forward for XYZ. So now you've done two pieces. You've connected the next generation to your wealth creation, right? You've told them how they were a part of that. And as much as we want to say, as the matriarch and patriarch, we did everything, it's impossible to be in a silo, right? We need all of those surroundings, which is our community, our friends, our family. So I think bringing them into the picture makes them value the dollars more.
So do you think of this as distinct from estate planning, an extension of estate planning, a whole different category aside from estate planning? Like, help us sort of connect together. Like, how do you think about this from the perspective of what the industry does, and then how do you position this relative to engaging with clients?
So this is not a plug, I swear. I'm completing my second book, and the title of it is The Emotional Heirloom. And this is where I encompass and share a tool on how to be able to pass on your legacy that incorporates all three aspects: the emotional, intellectual, and financial wealth that gets created. And this gets created through what we're used to, kind of the business cycle. When we think of it with our clients, it's their cycle of life, their accumulation phase, their preservation phase, and their distribution phase. In each one of those phases, they're developing wealth, all different types of wealth. And how that gets created are those lessons learned. So we were talking earlier about sharing best practices. We do it so much with our networking groups and our peers, but that sharing best practices should be a tool we use with families. This is that tool. This emotional heirloom is sharing best practices. So we have to share not just sacrifices, the problems and issues that we face, the fears that we had, or what was our motivation on, right, becoming a doctor, doing all those extra years of school, or anything that is your life story, right? There was reasons that everything happens. And I feel if we write it down, right, then we'll be able to share it more eloquently with the next generation. Because I'm sure if you think back, wow, how many times have I told a story that happened many years ago? And as you tell it to the next person, it becomes kind of like the telephone game where you're like, wait, did I do that? I don't remember now. So I think there's those pieces of if you write it down as it's happening and you're building out this beautiful emotional heirloom for the next generation, you're going to have, I'm not saying we're lying, a little bit more truer stories, more tied to the facts of what happened in that moment, in that day. And it, for me, it has not only served the next generation, but it serves me. When I go back into my journal and I look at these pieces, I'm like, wow, that happened this many years ago. And I could see, right, my millions of exclamation points that I have in my journal, or smearing from maybe where tears fell on my pages. But that shows me my growth in this journey of life.
And so is this about, like, should I think of this in the context of journaling? Like this is taking clients through a practice of ongoing journaling, or are we talking about something different?
It's a yes and. So there will be some journaling. There might be just a picture in time. There might be one piece of advice, right? So it's not going to be a one and done, and it doesn't, like our business, right? It's not one size fits all. So in the book, we go through multiple ways that you can create yours that is comfortable for you, and we'll share what you really want the next generation to know and understand.
So then help me understand a little bit more, just what's the tool?
It is writing. You can say writing, scrapbooking. Um, it could be an intentional letter that's then attached to it. It could be all placed in a box. It could be placed in a book. So it just depends on your personality and your style.
Okay. And then what's the process? I mean, are you trying to give them particular prompts of like things to write
Yes.
about?
Yes. I think that is much needed because if I were to tell you to just grab a pen and paper, I mean, for some of us, right, that enjoy it, it's fairly easy. But for those that do not,
Right.
I need you to help me, right? What do you want me to talk about? I want a fear. What is your fear today? What do you think your fear was then? So it's specific. So we try to, in the book, there'll be worksheets, and in there it'll have a prompt with an example. So it's not only telling you share this, but it says share this, and it sounds something like this.
So can you give me some examples of the kinds of prompts that you would take clients through?
Maybe our first question would be like, what's your relationship with money? Or what do you believe your relationship with money is? Then we'll give examples of, does it prompt you a need to save? And is this because someone in your family told you, or you didn't have enough? Or maybe it's any circumstance that could have come. So it gives you a full example of a story that could be told based on someone who selected a fear of money, or some people that get excited with money. Why are you excited about money? Maybe you lived through an era where it was, replenished daily and you had more than enough of it. Okay, so that makes you excited. Great. Now let's dig deeper, right? So that's kind of what the book does. It makes you understand why you feel what you feel by prompting multiple questions.
And so how many questions do you take people through?
Only 3. through each phase. So thinking through accumulation, preservation, and distribution, each phase will have 3. So it's not overwhelming, right? I
Okay.
think some might want to write more, and that's fine. But because we believe this tool adds so much value to leaving that lasting legacy, that we can keep it short and sweet and be intentional with these pieces that should be shared. Hence why I'm writing the book with a doctor in psychology, because there's different phases that we go through as well, at different, sometimes ages of our life and sometimes different circumstances. So we kind of tying 2 pieces together while we're doing this.
So help me understand how questions tie to each phase. I mean, I'm presuming like at the point I pick up the book or at the point I become a client, like I'm in one of these phases. It's just kind of cycle of life, accumulation, preservation, distribution. So
Yes.
how does this flow through 3 phases if I'm living in any particular one right now?
So let's say you're in preservation phase, regardless, you're reading a book like a normal book. So that meant you've already skipped chapter 2, which is accumulation phase, but that doesn't mean you can't go back and write about it. And another piece is it's not linear, right? So today you could tell me, Vanessa, I'm in preservation phase. And then we can talk 5 years down the road and say, nope, just kidding. I had this big life event. Something happened with my company. Something happened with this, XYZ. And I had to go back to accumulation phase. That's okay, because that is life, right? So it'll tie the pieces together that in some cases, you might want to answer the same question for the phase that you're in, but we try to tie accumulation more to a motivator, right? Because it's your beginning. So we need to know, okay, what's triggering you to move forward? What's making you want to take the next steps? So there is specific pieces that we try to make intentional on the phase, but we also don't want to create that stigma that, oh, if you're 20 to 39, you're in accumulation, but after 40, you should have already hit preservation mode and you should keep that until
Right.
you're 60, right? So we're trying to get away from that.
Okay.
So we tie what it could be, should be, would be, all of those in the questions.
So, and then likewise, like, do I have to wait to get to distribution phase to start writing my takeaways around distribution phase? I mean, is this like a living document thing I'm like creating and adapting over time for my family?
Yes, it should be a living document, as is an estate plan, right? As things change, you change, your decisions change. So in this case, I would say it's kind of like what we talked about right now. If you're in preservation phase and then you have to go back to accumulation phase because something devastating happened and you need to start all over, which is okay, then you can kind of go back and not necessarily rewrite, but add to it. And as far as moving forward, because I agree with you, because I do like to write, I'm more about this is what I would like for it to look like. And then you can reread it for yourself and see where you're at. But this is something that you can deliver. So when it comes to what you're saying, it's a living document. It is very much like an estate document that you can amend and change. But once you're ready to share, and maybe you share phase by phase with family because you're like, okay, I think I'm done with this and I really want to share this with them now, you can. And if you say you want to wait a little longer, you can. I think in the past, estate plans, because why they were created for, tax optimization. And in some cases, we hear people say rule after the grave. Um, what was written in them was quite different than now. I believe many families, at least in my experience, have wanted to start gifting during lifetime, right? I don't know if COVID did this to everyone, but you want to share in the memories. You want to be a part of it. And I used to tell families this all the time when we would sit together. The last thing I want is to then deliver these huge inheritances to the next generation and see the smiles on their face, the ideas that they have of what they're going to do with everything, and the light in their eyes and the gratitude. And that appreciation doesn't belong to me. right? That's for them. And now they're not here to see it. So after living through moments like that, it became so important for me to make sure that the real people that should live through that appreciation are the creators. And if they do some of that during lifetime, they get to enjoy it.
So I guess I'm just trying to visualize further. Can you share maybe like one of the questions from each of the three phases? Like I'm just trying to visualize, like, what am I writing about or asking a client to write about as they go through each phase?
Okay, so you can't hold me to this because my editor's still reviewing.
Understood. We're
But
giving examples from a manuscript in motion.
yes, you get a sneak peek. So in the accumulation phase, one of the questions is share about your emotional relationship with money and how it's impacted your accumulation phase of life. And then in our example, if you're apprehensive regarding finances, maybe you've avoided taking a deep look at your finances investments in order to reduce the risk of mistakes. If you have set high expectations for your earning goals, you may hyper focus on working extra hours or jobs, etc., to get the financial results you hope you have for your life. So here it's, what are you feeling? Is it hot that you're setting high expectations, or is it that you're apprehensive, and why is it? So it's making you continue to ask yourself. So this is right in the beginning, right? That's accumulation. Then we go into preservation. And this one, it's asking for advice. It's more of a, give some advice on your emotional growth and share an experience that propelled this progress. So if your advice is something like, be intentional on having difficult conversations, even when you know they might lead to an outcome you don't want. Let's say that is your advice. The experience shared here will give insight to not just take the advice, but to see what can happen when you do. We want the next generation to feel part of the journey. And the distribution phase. Create a list of meaningful mentors you've had throughout your life, starting from childhood to today. Share about how you see the impact reflected in your present. These people can be family members, professors, friends, therapists, etc. This is a time to reflect on what a significant impact any one individual can make in another's life.
Interesting. So, and in theory, I guess in theory, in practice, as I'm doing this, like as someone going through this, I'm writing it. I'm writing the answers to these in a journal. I'm typing them in
Mhm.
a Word doc, depending on my a written mode of preference. But like I'm like sitting down and trying to write out answers to these.
Yes, I think the newer generation might be jotting them down in their notes tab on their phone. But yes, that's exactly what this is.
So then, like, when or how do I share this with the family?
So this is an answer that I do not like, but it is the right answer. It's called it depends. There are family meetings that can be held, that can be, in my opinion, should be held, and you can share both the monetary aspects that travel through and how and why, as well as this emotional heirloom. So it just really depends on the style that you live with your family, right? Do you meet consistently? Is it just over Christmas that you all get together? As some families have a lot of family meetings throughout the year, right? So is this the special one where we share this? It just depends.
And otherwise, like I'll have a document that says, "Please read this," that my children or grandchildren find when I pass away.
I would not like that as an option for anyone
Okay,
personally,
why not?
um, because the idea is if that they get to ask questions, right? You would think that you'd be thorough enough to answer all of these things for yourself. But if you gave me your list of mentors, I would say, and you just listed them and said what they did for you. How about if my question is, well, which one impacted you most? Can I talk to them? Can you do an intro? I'd love to hear what they think about you, right? So it's really deepening the relationship you have with your family. And that would be a little difficult if I'm just going to go back and read it. But I get it. For some people, this is a difficult and uncomfortable phase that I would hope through motivation, you can embrace it.
And is this intended for it's like very, very high net worth folks who are moving a lot of dollars? I mean, is that kind of the idea? Like,
Definitely.
just there's a lot of wealth. I probably need to give more context to this than just literally bequeathing them millions of dollars or tens of millions of dollars, depending on how far you are up the net worth scale. I mean, is that the idea in context of this?
Definitely not. That is actually, I don't want to say it's the opposite because then I'm doing the same thing. I know this is for everyone because wealth or riches aren't tied to dollars. So if I've lived with my family who has given me a tremendous amount of emotional and intellectual wealth, I can consider myself just as wealthy as Elon Musk, right? I don't need dollars to impact the level of my wealth, but I do need these stories to remind me of how wealthy I am.
So how does this work in practice? I mean, you're writing the book now because of a version of this that you're like doing in practice with clients. So how does it work as a part of the advisory work that you do with clients?
So it's an introductory level still. I wanted to have the book completed because then it becomes a full tool and it leaves I mean, you can be flexible. Like we said, there could be additional questions asked, but at least it's a guiding light. And I wanted to have it complete before going super deep into it with the clients and saying, okay, we have a deliverable and let's get it going. But it does start with the family meetings. And the family meetings, I think sometimes when we think of this, or I don't know what you think of when you hear family meeting, do you think of like a big table with 10 people sitting around it? Or do you think just the partner?
I feel like there's like two versions of family meetings that get put out there. There's some kind of raucous home for the holidays thing, and there's what like really, really rich people do, or like family meeting has a whole other meaning to it because we're like having a family meeting to talk about the governance of the wealth of the family. I don't feel like I have talked to a lot of clients over the years that say like we have family meetings.
And I think you are 100% right on what the view is. And that's why, in some cases, it makes it very difficult to embrace it because you're thinking, oh, no, that's for those people. Or, no, that sounds overwhelming. So I'm calling it a family meeting because everyone listening, we're in the financial industry, right? So we kind of
Yep.
get the idea, but it's exactly what you're saying. It's just sitting with the family and talking, but being intentional on what you want to share in that moment. And I feel that the intentionality piece is what's lost, tied to how you communicate, right? So if you just walk downstairs and you're getting the kids ready for school and you're like, knowledge is power, and you send them off to school, they might remember it, right? And at some point, they might think it's silly that you say that. And maybe you say it every day. But the intentional piece would be to say, hey, people have movie night and they have game night. This is kind of that. If we can make it more normal, then I believe that we would end this shirt sleeve to shirt sleeve losing of inheritance in not just the dollars piece, but also the wealth and richness of culture and stories, because it's not shared, right? And that's why we have history classes. We have it because we want to learn from it and grow from it. And in some cases, it was done very well, and we want to just repeat it. So if we don't do that with our families, who will? So the idea would be, let's say there's one of the partners that's a little more adamant on, oh, I love this idea. Let's start it. I'm going to make him or her join us and be a part of it. It's just about having the conversation and saying, okay, what do you want to share with the kids? I only want to share that we've been building this and we're thinking of keeping the lake house, let's say, in this case. Do they want it? Do they not? Okay, let's talk about it. And then you're intentional on what questions you ask and what you share. So it's really just having conversations, but sometimes, most times, we're worried of what other people will say and how the communication, and will they hear me, like really hear me and what I'm trying to say and not take it the wrong way. So what do we all do? Avoid it. That's just what we do. It's natural to avoid conflict, avoid just any of that.
So how do you help clients unavoid when some of them probably like do go right into avoidance mode? Like, you're going to have a family meeting about this. Like, nope, I'm not.
Yes. So it takes time. And just like everything else in life, what do? When we're scared of something, besides avoidance, because that's the first step, the second one is making a decision. So if you make the decision to say, hey, I do want a healthy legacy, I do want these things, but I'm scared to do all of these things that you're saying. So then we say, okay, let's do one thing first. Just one thing. And in some cases, we're the doers, right? So it might be you want to tell the family that you want to gift them XYZ, whatever it is. Then maybe we're the liaison that facilitates that first piece. And then once they see the outcome, then they're like, oh, I could do this. I'll do this next time, right? So whatever it is, we do smaller steps until they get to the comfort level, both them and the children or the beneficiaries, right? Everybody has to kind of, and that's what makes them a little difficult sometimes. But if you're not making it a State of the Union type of meeting, and it's truly just, let's get together and talk, it flows quite nicely.
So does that mean there are times when you, like, your firm is actually involved in trying to facilitate one of these conversations, or I guess like the first one for a client who's trying to take
Yes.
their first baby step?
Yep. We definitely are. We're for part of the pre and the during.
And so can you share more about how that works? How are clients even delivering the message and convening this meeting together when they're not used to doing that, and you're going to be in the room and everyone's figuring this out for the first time?
It's funny how you phrase that, because I guess that's not how it's thought, but it's just funny to think it through, that you're like, oh, and our financial advisor will be there. I think that this works well when you are so intertwined with the family that and Vanessa's coming because she's going to help.
Well,
That's how it's said. And it's more, we've been preparing for this along the way, right? Because you have more than one generation that you're managing their overall wealth. So you've kind of gently slipped this in multiple conversations. Like, how would you feel if we all got together and talked about this? How would you feel if we got all together? How would you feel if we all got together? And of course, asking, can we share? Right? Can we share what your thoughts are on this? And then getting to the point where, yep, kids are ready. Are you ready? I'm ready. Let's do it.
and so how do you get to the point that you're already in front of the kids? I mean, so are you in a world of very high dollar clients with multi-generational wealth, and you're up and down the family tree already?
I am.
Okay. So then help us, like, then I guess let me take a a brief step back, say like help us understand just the clients that you work with and the firm itself of like who do you work with and what do you do and the client and how many clients you serve, like just help us visualize the business itself.
I have a blend. We're broad, so we have individuals and families, right? Because some people it's just one person, and maybe the beneficiaries end up being something more like a charity or nieces and nephews, but still beneficiaries. Um, People that are forming their business and inheritors. So it might go where I get another generation and then slowly have to just communicate with the generation above them. So it does make it complicated depending on which one lands with us, right? Which one selected us first. But then over time, it's truly just information sharing. I think when you look at maybe children, I'll call them, even though they're adults, but they're someone's children, and they're in their 50s. And they want to understand what's going to happen next because they're trying to make plans for their estate, right? And they're trying to organize their trusts in a in a tax efficient manner. But you can't fully do that unless you know what's falling into your estate or if anything is falling into your estate. And typically, right? You know there's something, you don't know when, how much, what, or all of those details. But even their communication sharing, right? If your children were to ask you, "Hey, Dad, how much are you going to leave me?" or "What's in the estate?" I don't know what your reaction would be. My assumption is it wouldn't be very positive if the question is asked that abrasively. But now, if your child is in their 40s and 50s and they're building their estate plan and they say, "Hey, Dad, can you know what, I'm really trying to build this out for me. And do you have recommendations? Can you point me in the right direction? What do you think I should and shouldn't do here? Like, look at this with me." Then you'll be more willing to say, "Oh, okay, hold on. I think you should do this because we've done this. And let me kind of guide you here." Or it might be, "Let me connect you with my attorney," which is what some people do, right? Some people are not ready to share, and that's okay. But at least if you're connected with that attorney, you still have the piece of confidentiality, but you can still guide the next generation to make sure that their plan ties efficiently with the matriarch and patriarch.
And so how many clients or I guess like households do you, because I'm assuming like multi-generational, you kind of have like multiple clients in one household across the generations. Like how many clients or households do you guys do this with in practice today?
It's not all of the AUM we have. We do it right now with 10 families.
Okay. Like 10 high dollar
Families, that's
families.
multiple
Okay.
generations. Yeah.
Okay. And then what's the like I guess like AUM base or revenue base? I don't know how you measure it in the context of the business. Like what's the
Right now we're
uh,
at 135.
okay. Okay. And so you end out like very deep with these 10 core families that have large dollar amounts, uh getting into presumably both the portfolio management side because there is AUM here as well as all of these estate legacy conversations.
Yes.
So can you walk us through then like what the planning process is? I mean, if I am a new prospectively new high dollar household that says like, yeah, Vanessa, this I think we need to, sort through this for ourselves and what we're going to leave for our kids, for our family. Like I want to become a client. How does it work? Like what's the process that a new client goes through when they say, I want to do this with your firm?
It's knowing where they are today. So, most likely, they have something in place. I'm hoping an estate plan. They probably have a net worth built out, maybe even a financial plan already created. So it depends on where they are. We want to make sure we understand a snapshot of exactly what they have today and what they've done. That's always the most important piece. So, of course, if we think of it like all of our websites, right? We have a discovery session. Of course, we have that because we want to understand all of your pieces. And I share this with clients, and I think we're very similar in this thought process is that I need to understand all the pieces to be able to give you any and all recommendations. It won't happen if I'm not understanding what else you have and what else you're doing. So, you know how you have some clients that might just want to hand over a portion or are wary of what comes next. So, we have to sit with them and understand, okay, just share with me, not because I'm trying to push you to give me all of these assets, just so I know how and why they're invested that way. And I need to understand how many properties. I need to understand what states they're in. So I think that discovery piece is the most impactful meeting to start to dig into everything they have. Once you have that, and you collaborate with them to confirm, okay, this is all correct, this is what you're looking like, then you can go into, now, what is your goal? And in your case, you're saying, okay, I want to do the legacy portion. Then we have to talk about, okay, do you want to do lifetime gifting, or is your plan all after death? Right? So it's very convoluted because it really depends on where you are and what you want to accomplish. The end goal would be our intentionality on communication. Let's communicate not just with each other as advisor client, but also between each other, right? Because I'm sure we've all seen it that you have one spouse who knows 95% of everything that's going on, and another that can range anywhere between 2% to maybe 60%. So you can't just jump the gun and go straight to, let's do a legacy planning because this is fun. We get to talk about our values and our mission and our whys and all of this wonderful pieces if you two don't even know. So that is piece one. If we're talking about besides asset allocation and asset location, now let's talk about what do each of you fully know and not know about what's going on. And then it's kind of transparency, right? If we can have transparency between them, then this process is much easier to pass on.
So I'm just trying to visualize how this flows in terms of like meetings or timeline with the client. So it sounds like meeting number one is a discovery meeting. How long is that meeting? Like, it's like, how long does it take to dig into this much stuff?
Oh, it's a few meetings. I think it shouldn't be the end goal of, it takes 10 meetings and then we're done with this. That's just not how this is. This is a very fluid process, and it's going to be dependent on how fast or how slow you want to go, how much you're willing to be vulnerable and share, and how long it takes for you to become vulnerable and share. So it's not quantifiable like that. This is not, as our wonderful listeners, those math people, which I am too. I like that, right? I like 2 + 2 = 4, but this is not one of those cases. This is going to be, it depends. And of course, we have life happening as this is all going down.
So in least in the ideal flow, what comes after discovery? I mean, you talked about asset allocation. Like, is the investment side of things next for you because you're running an assets under management model? Is there some other meeting in the process? Like, what comes next if I'm following the normal process?
So if you're following the normal process, first we learn about each other and understand what do we have at hand, right? Then the second, let's call it meeting, just to kind of keep a flow here, would be, okay, now what do you want, right? What is the end goal? Or what is a short term, midterm, and long term, right? We can have multiple goals. After we establish that, then I can make recommendations as to let's establish a timeline, right? Now, because I understand you, you understand me, and I've established what we need to do to get you to that. Now I can say, okay, this is going to take, let's say, 5 steps. And it might be different for everyone because of the urgency of what comes next. So let's say you don't have an estate plan and you come to me and you do need one. So we need to get that done, right? If you have children, it just depends on your situation. We'll change the priorities of which step comes next. But if we want to say streamline, you came out of a box and let me cookie cutter this after the discovery, and understanding your wishes, I make recommendations. We can get the assets invested. We review both your estate plan and any tax, like your previous tax return, to kind of make sure that those two pieces tie to each other. In this process, we'll find that maybe things aren't titled correctly. So that is a quick and easy fix on our side because we're just listing it. That can take a year for some people. If you have, private equity, venture capital, all of these different more complicated ownerships, they take longer to then title into your estate plan. Then after we complete that, and like I said, first you have to be in order. You can't share disorder. So once you're in order, then we can kind of get into this family narrative, right? Composing this emotional heirloom that then can be shared with the family, and it can be done through phases, just like everything else. And what I like is it depends on the person, right? I have those people that are similar to me, type A, and only know one speed and it's super, super fast. So those people, we can move a little faster where I can say, hey, I need you to change the title on these 3 things. And they're like, okay. 3 weeks later, they're like, done. What's next? Oh, perfect. Now let's go on to the next thing, right? But if you don't work at that pace, it's not my pace. It has to be your pace, what you feel comfortable with, because you're going to find joy in all of these phases. So I want to take your pace. Once you're done with that, or some people will get overwhelmed if I'm like, okay, first we have to make sure we amend your estate because we reviewed these 3 things and you're not up to date after the laws have changed. You need accumulation, you need this, you need that. If I start spewing all of these things out at someone, the first thing they're going to say is, I'm out. You're too much. This is I can't do this. So that's why I always believe in the platinum rule, right? It's not treat people how you want to be treated. It's treat people how they want to be treated. And tying this to communication, it's not my style of communication. You have to learn what theirs is. And if you want them to follow along and truly reach these goals, you have to meet them where they are and take those steps as they're embracing one by one.
With the asterisk that when you're working with very high dollar clients with a lot of complexity, like there's a lot of moving parts just to get to where they are.
Yes, yes. And you have to be understanding of these things. I think that's also the case.
And so I'm presuming that the level of complexity of high dollar clients is also why, if I heard right, I mean, even the discovery layer is essentially like 2 meetings. The first is, I just need to know where you are today and all the things you've got now. And meeting number 2 is, okay, now we can actually start talking about goals and what you want and where you're going. Like we have to do that in 2 meetings because it's too much to get through in one.
For sure, unless you have that person that comes in with a binder and says, ask me a question, any question, and they turn to the page because they got the little Post-its on it. If you got one of those, then maybe you can get it done in a meeting.
Yep. So then in this kind of model, I mean, how many meetings do you have with clients through the first year as you're just like blocking and tackling through this much stuff?
Normally, the first year, and I would say the first quarter, is more intense. Because if you have a client that is actually getting the pieces done that you're requesting, you need to make sure you follow through with that. If you have a client that you're like, hey, can you get this done? And they automatically tell you, hey, it's going to take me like a month or 2 months to get that to you. Okay, then you just put them on pause, right? And then you have the follow up. Of course, all our wonderful task managers and will remind us to give them a call to check in. But if not, then you got to go the other route.
And so what does it add up to over the span of a year?
For a new client that wants to be involved and is responsive, I would say probably at least 6 meetings. But I think if we're in this case, because I know it can sound overwhelming because then you're like, oh, and then there's more clients and then there's more meetings and then there's more things. Really, if you establish like a really great relationship with them and they're trying to be intentional on getting a project completing, not necessarily, hello, Mr. Client, how has your, no, we don't have to do that. I just talked to you last week, right? I know what's happening. You already told me what's happening. We're having this call today to get this and this done, right? That's it. So it's not an hour to 2 hour meetings every single time. And I want my clients to know that they can reach out to me whenever and how many times they want, knowing that they're going to have that purpose. And as we know, we have some clients that do what they do no matter what we say, no matter how we act, no matter how many rules we put in place. That we can't change that, right? But the same way that you create a culture in your practice, you also create that with the families that you work with. And they'll understand your style and you'll understand their style. And in some cases, it might be, hey, that's perfect. So for the next 3 things, I'm going to have Kasha reach out to you and she'll get that done for you. Oh, of course. Sounds great. It's just about expectation. I know it's easier said than done. I'm making it sound like it's easy. I know it's not.
So what's the actual business model for you? Are you assets under management fee? Is there retainer fees or minimums? Like how does the business model work?
99% is AUM.
Okay. And how does fee schedule work for you when you're like working with high dollar clients like this?
It's a tiered approach, and depending on the complexity, we'll sit and talk through what works best and what's fair, to be honest, right? Because we have some things that are, I am very considerate when it comes to that, in the sense, if you have something that's locked up and there is absolutely nothing that can be done, there's no way I'm going to charge you for that, because there's nothing I can do with that. Even though I am incorporating it to our plan, if I can't actively make a decision whether to hold, buy, or sell something, then my advice has no relevance if I can't do anything.
So does that mean you may otherwise charge like an assets under advisement fee on like
Correct.
anything on their balance sheet that you can advise on, not just the assets that are like regulatory managed?
Correct. But that's why I'm saying 99 is AUM. 99% is AUM. It's very
Which is mean like actually managed assets.
correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Okay. And so how do the tiers work for you? Like where do you put breakpoints when the account balances can get pretty large?
After 10, we're at between 10 and 20, we're at 70 bips.
After 10 million, you're at 70 bips.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then is there another break point above 20?
We talk that through with those clients.
Okay. Okay. So, and is there a minimum for you?
I would say I don't have one now, but I don't think I'd go lower than 60 bips, mainly because I'm not your asset manager. I'm your wealth advisor. And if you value all of the additional care, advice that I give you on absolutely everything you do, you'll agree to that.
Is there an asset minimum that they have to bring in the door just to be eligible to fit for the services as a client in the first place?
No, no. That was something that we were intentional on. Obviously, we have our own models. So we're individual stocks and bonds, which means that at a certain dollar amount, it makes it almost impossible to diversify properly. And that's not our model. So to do that, yes, we do need a certain dollar amount, but I just want to do what's right by the client. And based on how we do things, it makes it impossible to diversify you. But of course, there's family members, there's referrals that we want, and everyone is valuable. So we have different flows on how to work through those.
Well, so how do you manage capacity when you're going after decamillionaire households, and anyone can potentially be a client and take a slot?
The way we look at that is we are growing our advisor base. So right now we're currently at 4 advisors. And I think it's kind of people that you refer are the clients that you have. So it tends to just flow naturally to not have to turn anyone away per se. But our idea has always been that if that comes, we'll build something, right? I mean, we do have ETFs for depending on moving things, just a holding spot for certain things. So we do have them, and we have models, different ETF models that we run through.
So does that mean you have other clients beyond the core 10 families on
Yes.
the books now? Like, I'm just trying to
Yes.
envision, even for big dollar families, like 4 advisors for 10 clients feels like a lot of folks.
Yes. One is a new advisor.
Okay, so getting up to speed.
Yep.
So then how many total clients or households are there across the business between the core folks and like the others that other advisors are working with?
There, I think we might be leaning more towards households, maybe 60 to 70.
Okay. Okay. And so it's you kind of have like a segmentation style model. You have some of the largest higher dollar households, other advisors work with clients at other tiers on the spectrum, and that's how you kind of handle the segmentation challenge.
Maybe for future. Currently, the way we did it is I launched Expressive Wealth, and I had 2 advisors that uh, were at other practices, and they came over with their book.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So each one of us has those types of families, as well as a blend of others. Um, so yeah, the idea would be that we would then bring on newer advisors, right? Succession planning. I believe succession planning starts now to
Yep.
build trust. This is a slow game. This is not then you turn over and pass someone along. That's not how we see it. It's definitely a relationship, and to build that, it takes quite some time.
So then where do these like large high dollar clients come from?
In some cases, um, previous practices. In some cases, referrals from friends.
So there's not like a separate marketing process for you guys. It's like it's just all word of mouth in that community.
Yes, and very, um, like I said, we're so intertwined in the families that we're at events with them. So it's different to say I'm just giving you a referral because I talked about you versus, oh, you were there and you talked to my friend so and so. Like birthday parties, like weddings, like just in case you were going to ask for examples.
Right.
I
Okay.
know you love examples, Michael.
I'm just trying to visualize it. I'm a very visual person. So I guess I'm just trying to envision like how you manage growth. Like, are you just stuck in it's a fairly reactive world? We're just trying to be out there, and if we make enough contact, enough opportunities, at some point a referral shows up.
We are intentional in our marketing with having more of a presence. So by that, I mean networking events or actual events that we launch. We have, obviously, right, we have the second book coming out. We have a podcast that we run that we just launched, blogs and newsletters. So content is out, and our key in our content is always education, and communication, because that's kind of our brand. We want to make sure that families understand this. So typically when we get referrals or we go places, the main referral source with our family is when they say they're not like, oh, this is all about performance. They're great. Go with them. It's more of, oh my goodness, my daughter was going to get married, or is getting married, and Vanessa was able to help kind of get everything in order for the prenup, or she explained to them what it actually means so it didn't look and sound like a bad word. Right? So that is how our referrals transfer, and we have been quite fortunate in that.
So then what kinds of, like, I think you said like both networking events you go out to and events that you run and yourselves, like what kind of event marketing are you doing to fill this in?
It's still educational. So in that case, it might be something like wine and stock night, right?
Wine
So
and stock night. So how
yeah.
does that work?
So it might be at like a wine store that has the space, and then we do a quick chit chat on kind of what we see, where we see it heading, and things you can do or put in place to kind of help today. All general allocation pieces, but then have a quick sommelier come on and explain two different wines. So now you're just sitting there networking with everyone that's in the room, talking about stock and wine.
And who gets invited to an event like this? It's like how many people are in the room, and who are you inviting?
Small groups, and it's a client and two friends.
Okay. So very small, like there are four of us, like, and a sommelier hanging out.
A little bit bigger, more like 10 to 15
Okay.
total.
So then like a few clients may get invites
Yes, yes, yes,
and bring
yes.
a few friends each.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Okay. And just how do you, I don't know, how do you do the invite? Like how do you position this with clients to get comfortable to bring friends to what nominally is the marketing event for their financial advisor?
I think the way that we've done it is because we have uh, that like really strong relationship with our clients. It's more like, what are your friends asking about? Right. So it might not be stocks. That was just an example, but it's typically exactly what you started this whole conversation with, which is estate planning. Right. That is, I think, a big question for many, understanding their own. Um, do they have the right one in place? Is some people, and you would be astonished, and how it's just they only have the will because it was done so many years ago, and in their mind that's what that meant, and didn't realize, well, that that goes through probate. So I think those pieces are kind of where we lean. Like, what are the questions? That's what we want to do. We want to answer your questions. We don't want to just sit here and teach you, because some people will be like, what, stocks? I don't want to hear about that. I don't care about that. But if I say, your kids are going to college, make sure you have something in place, like a healthcare directive, so that you're aware of what's happening just in case. Then it's like, wait, what? I am. And then it's an age group, right? And then it's a demographic, maybe in the neighborhood, maybe with a mom's group, that they're all, oh my goodness, I do want to learn about this. That's what makes it enticing. If you're answering what someone has questions on, they will be there.
And so how does the actual invitation process work then? Like, do you go to select clients and ask them to bring friends? Do you like send this to all clients? Like, do
No,
they have to
select.
bring a friend?
No, it's select, and they don't have to. But sometimes because they know it's a few people, then they're kind of like, oh, I at least want one person with me.
Okay.
They travel in packs.
So the outreach is to clients and the invitation is like your friends are welcome if you'd like to bring one.
Or a few. A couple, more a couple than a few. I don't want that many, but yes. And the way we assign it is more of, where do we want to have it? Do we want to have it over here in my neighborhood? Do I know that I have 5 other families in this other neighborhood? Right? That you want to make it easy. You want to answer their questions, and you want to make it accessible. And you want to pick a night that is accessible, right? Nobody wants to give you their Friday night. So we lean on Thursdays, because there you just have one other day of work left. So Thursdays is typically our night, and that's how we kind of assign who gets to go to what. So, because some clients, the retired clients, would love to go to absolutely everything.
Well, they have
But
a lot of time. Yes, they do.
correct. So it's not that we don't want them; it's that it's further away, right? So it's kind of in the setting of in the neighborhood, a neighborhood get together.
And so that's how you'll frame it, to kind of politely
Yes.
not have invited all clients. If someone says like, Vanessa, I heard you did one of your events. Like, I didn't get invited. Like, oh,
Correct.
it was a
Correct.
neighborhood thing up there. It's not.
Yes. Because then it's family, right? You can have someone who is that you did invite, and then the mother or the daughter, either or, is in another neighborhood. And it's not that you didn't want to invite the mother and the daughter, or in some cases you might, even though they're indifferent, if they want to come in and maybe babysit the grandkids, actually. But if not, you want to be fair in saying why you didn't. It's not that I didn't want you there. It's truly because it's a neighborhood thing.
I guess obviously from a pure kind of marketing geography, and certain neighborhoods and zip codes are naturally conducive to this approach anyways, given the dollars in the neighborhood.
Yeah, they are. Obviously, I'm in Chicago, but I'm assuming it works like this in most places. Once you get into the suburbs, and even more so like a little village per se, it's like everybody knows everybody and everybody knows everything. So it's already a little community in itself. So it invites itself to be very easily done.
So as you reflect on this journey, what's surprised you the most about building an advisory business working with these types of high dollar clients?
They're very open in wanting your success as well. So it's kind of, they're proud of you and they want you to continue to succeed. Of course, you have to give them their time, but they want you to succeed. When you're in that kind of relationship, it's overwhelming in a joyful way to hear them say that, to that it is beyond that even though in my mind I become quite attached to the clients I work with. I mean, honestly, to everybody. So watch out, Michael. I might be calling you after this. I build that really strong connection, and I always want to be helpful, right? I consider myself just a server at heart, that I'm always willing to help and to share. And the surprise was that so are they. So are they.
And so how does that show up in practice?
It's the applauding your successes, sharing it, which then leads to a referral that's already closed. You really have to do almost nothing because it's kind of like a beyond a referral. I don't even know what word exists. I'm just making stuff up now. But it's that easy.
So what kind of successes? I mean, like what successes in the context of my client shares it with their friends that results in a referral coming through?
It's that piece that we were talking about on same friends that have children in the same age group that are going through the same things, that then my client will share how I was supportive in meeting with her daughter and her future husband to talk through these things. There's no fee, there's no catch, there's nothing besides helping the family with what their goals are. And if I know that from the beginning, then it's easy to align and bring it down to the next generation. And they share that.
So I feel like a lot of advisors try to do various versions of, you know, I take quote unquote accommodation clients, like family members of like kids and family members of my top clients, because I'm, trying to be supportive and show up well for them. And a lot don't seem to get referrals. It's kind of like, thank you for helping my kids. And then they move on. Is there, and I'm just wondering, like, why does this seem to result in more referral activity for you than it does for some other advisors?
It can go both ways, right? So I don't think it's in all cases the advisor. It'll be a blend of both. There's some clients that are just, right, very transactional in life.
Right.
Um, but and there's some advisors that are very transactional. And I think sometimes, and this is the whole piece of having a chief clinical officer on the team, is that sometimes that self-awareness button, we haven't pressed it hard enough. And what that means is maybe you're transactional, even though you say you're relationship based. And that's okay as long as you know it and want that to be the case. There's many advisors that are like, Vanessa, I think you go too deep. I think that you cross the lines. And that's okay because that's their opinion and that's okay. And I get it. And they can be successful in their own right. But for me, this works. For me, this brings me joy. And I feel that when I talk to my clients, when I'm with them, they know I'm in it for what I'm in it for, which is to reach the goals because I care. And many of us say that, but if your actions don't show that, other people can feel it.
And did you say there's a chief clinical officer on the team?
Yes.
So what is that?
What is
role?
that?
What is that?
So this is bringing back the doctor in psychology that we have on the team. And she supports the team itself as well as in these, I'm going to call them client conversations now because we said we don't like the word client meetings. So she supports in those as well as internally with the team.
So can you tell me a little bit more of like what does she actually do? What does it mean she supports in the team and meetings?
So on the team side, we have an assessment that we run, a different one. We'll do a different one each year. Obviously, as you know, I launched on International Women's Day in 2024. So this is year one. So one assessment down, many, many to go. But the idea is to evaluate and assess either our personality or our communication style, and then be able to understand each other better as a team. Because I'm sure you've had the times where you're sitting there talking to someone and then they repeat back to you, that's not what I said. We've all had that happen. And that's because we either aren't listening or are, but what we heard is what we heard, and that's maybe not what they were trying to say. So she helps us as a team become better at listening and being self-aware of these things, right? Because if our assessment shows that this is how we tend to do things, okay, then how do we evolve from that? So that's internal pieces, which then just make us all better to serve our clients. And then on the client side, it's more as a liaison, right? As an outsider, because I can be in there and I could definitely sit there and walk through the flow of the estate plan and the GST and the grats and the slats and all the wonderfulness that's involved. But when it comes to those difficult conversations, right? If you're going to say, okay, we're keeping the lake house and we're having this trust and the expenses flow through that. And then one of the kids is like, yeah, but then what happens when that runs out? Then we have to cover it. I don't want to cover it because he comes more and I don't go. And then she doesn't go. And then it becomes an argument. But if we have someone as an outsider that says, okay, let's talk about that, right? It's kind of like you in the room where you're like, wait, let's dig deeper there. So we try to understand, why are they so angry about keeping the house? What do they feel that maybe hasn't been shared with them that makes them feel like they don't want to do, or why do they feel that burden is heavier on them? Maybe in the past they've taken on other burdens more. Maybe they're the family member that is either getting less of the inheritance, producing less income, whatever it may be, right? But you dig deeper in these conversations. And what I found in the past, that not having a chief clinical officer, or let's call it a liaison to facilitate this or help in the process, then that burden is now placed on me. And I'm definitely not trained for that. So it's been tremendously helpful. And obviously we've only been in business for a year with this new structure. So we've only gone through it with 2 families, and it was, I don't even know what word to use besides just an enjoyable time with great success.
So is the psychologist in every meeting?
Mm-mm.
Or just some?
Only in the final one, right? So remember how we talked that we're going to do a couple pre-meetings and we're going to do some planning. And then once the family is ready, then we'll lean into the next step, which is communicating it to others at whatever phase they're willing to do it, right? So it could be step 1, we're only going to talk structure, no dollars, no this, no that. Okay. Then, and we can gauge where we feel, if it's just a sharing. Some matriarchs and patriarchs just want to tell you what it is, and some want your opinion because obviously it's a revocable, it's a living document. We can change it still. So it just depends on what the family wants. If we feel that there's a need, we'll take up her time.
And so nominally when we get to the family meeting that we're convening, she's coming to the family meeting or facilitating the family meeting?
Well, we'd be the facilitator. The advisor would be the
Okay.
facilitator, but she would be kind of I don't even know what to call it, like a support person.
Okay. And so then you how do you explain her role, presence to the family?
Communication.
She's gonna be new to the meeting because they've seen you for a while now, but she's new to the meeting.
I state it as she is going to be helping with communication styles. I mean, I'm fully transparent, obviously, with the name of Expressive Wealth on the door.
Right.
Communication, I repeat it constantly. So they know of her because she's on the website. They know of her because we've talked about it. So it's kind of like you already knew it was coming.
Okay. And at the end of the day, she's you pay her by the meeting to engage with clients.
Correct.
Okay.
Because she has her own practice.
Okay, as a practicing psychologist.
Correct.
Okay. So as you've gone through this journey, what was the low point for you?
I don't think there's one low point. I think there's many. I think we go through ups and downs, and it depends on maybe the time or the day, right? Sometimes I think of it like when you have a baby and they're tiny and you're like, oh, I wish they'd walk already. I wish they would talk already. And then when they do, and you're like, oh man, I didn't want all that. I feel that happens with the business when you create it. Sometimes I want clients to fully trust me. Obviously, I have discretion over their portfolio, and I'm like, okay, just kind of let me roll with it. I got this. But then when clients fully trust you, then you start feeling quite a big burden, right? Because anything and everything is you. And of course, you consult, but you know when they're like, Vanessa, why are you asking me? You already know. It's what you say. But I'm like, no, we're going to educate you. Let me explain to you. And they're like, yes, I get it. I know why you picked this, or I know why you decided to change this or make this or recommend that we do these things. Um, but those moments are difficult when there's volatility in the market, right? Because you carry that. You know it's not your fault. You know that you can only lean in on what you can control, and this is not something that we can control. But that doesn't mean that the burden isn't there. And that's something that you carry as an entrepreneur. So
So how,
those moments come quite often.
so how do you manage that burden when markets get volatile and it feels like it's on your shoulders?
I know I'm doing my best. And I literally have to remind myself of that, as well as I have skin in the game. Anything that my clients are in, I'm in. I'm that advisor that, if there's something new and I'm like, okay, let's try it, right? It's kind of like, okay, let me try it first. I want to test the waters. Um, Funny enough, like Bitcoin, I was not a believer. Not to say that I am now, but too many clients were talking about it. And if I don't fully get immersed in it and understand it, not just poo poo it away, right? I can't just be like, no, it's not real. It's not blah. I'm not going to talk about it, right? You can't do that. Your client wants to talk about it. So besides being just educated on talking about it, I was like, okay, let me give it a try. Let me put something in there so I can also see those pieces. So that way, when you talk about the experience, oh, you feel it. When it moves and I'm talking about it, I feel it because I lost too. So see, this is why more of this is instead of that. And, so I'm quite in there with them.
So what else do you know now that you wish you could go back and tell you from 10 plus years ago?
Uh, Slow is okay. Actually, slow is good, not okay. I I make decisions sometimes too quickly, and some might say, "Oh, that's great. You're right. You're not missing opportunities. You're not." But I think there is an aware piece that I was missing, right? So there's always those risky people, and then there's risk averse. But I think there's a third layer, which is that risk aware. And now what I've done is kind of stepped into that phase of, okay, sounds good, looks good. Let me do it. Let me have a quick test at it. And I love the fact that my partner Lauren is the opposite of me, because you need that, right? You need that diversity of thinking to be able to actually move forward. If you keep going one way, it can work, but how long is it going to work for? Right. So it's nice to have, I love that I have her as a partner and that we do think differently. And I think we definitely make each other better, because when I would make decisions quickly, I would say, okay, this is a great idea. And then if it didn't work within a week, I'm like, fail, next. And I'm like, I didn't even give it a fair try now that I look back, right? Then I just
What,
kept
what was
shooting ideas.
what was the most challenging one of those that whipsawed around in a not good way?
platforms.
So like tech that you tried and then it didn't work out and then you moved on and wish you hadn't gone through it so fast.
Correct. But you're caught in this whirlwind of keep it moving, Vanessa, keep going. You got to go on to the next thing. You just got to pick. You have to do this. You have to. I think no one was putting that pressure on me besides me. But now having Lauren as my partner, besides not just a sounding board, but also another intelligent mind that says, hey, I think this and this, they're both good, but this is superior for this. And then we can debate it, but then come to a good answer for the team, for the clients we serve.
So what advice would you give younger or newer advisors coming into the profession and wanting to get their career started?
I think testing testing the waters at basically, you could say, I don't want to say anywhere, but where the opportunities arise is a good thing. The more exposure you have to the different options that are out there, the more educated your decision will be when you're ready to call it your career. So besides the kind of wirehouse model, the independent RIA, all of these different ones that exist, besides just that, it's the culture that you're in, the mentorship or non-mentorship that exists in the company, the role, right? There's planners that can be not client facing. Are you that kind of person that prefers not to, but you would really enjoy all of the pieces that are involved? Or do you really want to sit in front of the client? Like testing all of those pieces. I would say this is a wonderful, wonderful career. And I'm sure there's other careers like it, but obviously it's the one I chose and love. But I can't think, at least off the top of my head, a career where you get to learn from every single person that you sit with to make someone else's life better. And what I mean is the best practices piece, right? You come with a family and they share maybe things that they've done, not so great, great, work, not work. And now that just becomes part of my tool bag. And then I get to share it on with the next family. So I know that I'm kind of gifting other people's experiences to the next family, of course, and myself and my team's family. I don't know if other jobs have that, but I love that I get to experience that every day.
So as we wrap up, this is a podcast about success. And just one of the themes that comes up is like the word success means very different things to different people. And so you're now on this wonderful path of success with the business, $135 million in our management and growing. Like the business is in a wonderful place. How do you define success for yourself at this point?
I would say when I know that I've positively impacted someone's life to the point that they want to do the same for someone else, I've reached success.
And so like a pay it forward moment when you've created a pay it forward desire.
Yes, because it takes time to create that. But once you've been given that often enough and you cultivate that sense of giving brings joy and prosperity, then people will want to share. And that is success.
I love it. I love it. Well, thank you so much, Vanessa, for joining us on the Financial Advisor Success Podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Want even more ideas, tools, and resources on how to break through to the next level of success as a financial advisor? Check out the leading financial planning industry blog, Nerd's Eye View, at www.kitsis.com, where Michael covers the latest practice management trends and financial planning strategies. And by joining the members section, you can earn IMCA and CFP continuing education credits, along with exclusive member content. Get it all now at www.kitsis.com.